So, Jonathan, we haven't heard from you.
Ew.
How are you doing? Are you still in the repair section? You should be done by now. Not to nag you.
I am still in the repair section. I'm starting the second half of it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Because you've been in that section a little while now, right?
Yeah, for a little while.
Yeah, I don't think you're behind yet, but you should be able to get through that soon, right?
Yeah. I think the next part's mostly just taking stuff apart, and because I finished all the tests that they had for the book chapters. So.
Okay, so because when you get into the network section, it gets more challenging for most people. So when you get into the network section, you're going to have to be familiar with setting up. You were pretty familiar with setting up virtual machines, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you get to the network section, the challenge is we'll set up multiple virtual machines, and you've got to set them up to communicate with each other. And that's where we'll get into in the virtual machines, bridging and NATing virtual machines. Did we talk about NAT before as far as networks and network address translation, Derek?
I'm pretty sure you guys did. And
well, I know we talked about it with you a dozen times, but yeah.
But I mean, like, I think I was here when you
okay. All right. So those are things we'll talk about, and we've talked a little bit about things to anticipate in the network section as far as IP addresses. Can somebody give me an example of a private IP address?
That's the 192.168 addresses, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. So that's kind of a number you'll see a lot, so you should memorize it. On your home computers right now, you'll probably see an IP address that starts with 192.168 because more than likely you're connected to a home router, correct? Most of you, except if you're on your phone. Phone a little different, right? But if you're on a home network or a Wi-Fi network, then your computer or your device should probably have an IP address that starts with 192.168. Mm-hmm. Now we know, we've talked about that's not a valid address on the internet. That one has to be translated. That's why we'll get into that network address translation. So your address, you have it in your home, within your Wi-Fi, or you're wired. If you're wired into your home router, it will have to be translated to an IP address that your internet service provider, whether it be Spectrum or Charter or whoever, they actually use a public one. I'm trying to remember, did we talk about the different ranges of IP addresses, A, B, and C?
I think so. Those are the different subnet masks, right?
Well, they use a subnet mask as well, correct. Okay, Jonathan, can you remember the subnet mask for an A IP address?
I think that's just 255.0.0.0, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And then for each one after that, you just add a 255.
Correct. So that's the easy way to remember the subnet mask. Mm-hmm. So anytime you have an address that connects to the internet, an IP address, it not only needs the address, it needs the mask to go along with it. It doesn't work just because your computer has an IP address. That's actually not good enough. It requires two things: an IP address and then a subnet mask to show what class of IP address it is. So it needs to identify whether it's an A, a B, or a C. Okay. Okay, I'm going to share the screen now, and I'm going to take a look at the Windows 7 exercises, and because I think most of you. Oh, Justin, I haven't talked to you yet. Justin, do you want to talk now, or? Justin, he's the J.
Mic is off.
Justin, are you on your phone or not? Maybe he's not on his phone. Justin, can you send something in the chat? So yeah, Max and Justin are advanced students. They're returning. And so if you have any tough questions, Justin, you can answer them, right? Okay, so let me share my screen. I can hear you. Hey, Brian, can we do a one-on-one?
Will send for us this video later.
What was that?
Are you going to register this?
Oh yeah,
video?
yeah. I will post it later on.
Okay, please.
Okay. Yeah. So if you can't sit through the whole thing, Dalia,
Because I don't have my computer and my paper, and just I will write down some notes.
yeah, I'll post the video. So yeah, don't say
Okay.
anything you don't want.
Oh yes.
And if you don't want to appear in the video, you can blank your screen. Yeah.
Because I didn't start yet this exercise.
Okay. All right. But we'll talk about, because you'll be starting it soon.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's share the screen. All righty. So let me find. Let me find the right screen right here. All right. So that's where I announced to change the. Well, originally it was 10.
I see you fixed it.
I fixed it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't able to make it a 10. I had some computer issues and a few things, and updating.
Well, I said that I'm not alone in my multiple emails and all this other confusion.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Or the email. Okay. Something.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the CSAT testing.
Oh, the CASAs?
Yeah.
Oh, they're doing it outside now, right outside my room.
Yes.
It's kind of funny.
With no restroom. With no.
No, they left the door propped open so you can get to the restroom.
Yeah, they got to do something.
No, you can get to the restroom. They prop the door open, so if you go inside the double doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, if anybody's coming here to do the CASAs, they're doing it outside in the little patio.
Yeah.
And if you need to use the restroom, they're leaving the door propped open, Derek. So it's not true.
Okay. Well,
They didn't tell.
That's what Rosa said.
They are going to schedule us for that, or we should tell them.
I'm not
The
sure
lady
if they're.
just called me, actually. She just called me like 5 minutes ago.
Oh,
And
okay.
I scheduled my test for Thursday at 9:15. So I don't know how it would go for with you if you ain't take it yet. But she did call me.
Okay,
Oh,
is she having you do it online or come here and do it?
Yeah, I'm going to the building to do it. She said.
Okay, that's a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get to do it out in the shade. Kind of interesting to doing computer work outside.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, the Wi-Fi extends that far, so they're using laptops.
We can do that online at home. Can we do that?
You can do it at home as well. It's a little more awkward to do it at home, but yeah, you can.
Oh, okay.
They just started doing it here outside.
Oh, okay.
So they just started that. I think today was the very first day they did the
Oh,
process that
okay.
way. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let's take a look now at Windows Fundamentals Section 1. So just so we can make this clear. Okay. So there's these are bookwork that you submit into Canvas. So these shouldn't take you very long at all. So they're within the certain chapters. You can see that's going back to the very beginning of the book. And actually, there's no submission on that one. That was a bad example. Let's click on another one. Let's click on that one. Okay, so this one says complete steps 1 through 3 in the book on page 25. Obviously, it has something to do with setting the folder view, things like this. When you go into file properties, you see where it says here, don't show hidden files or folders, show hidden files or folders. There are a lot of hidden files within Windows, and sometimes we want to have access to those. Most of the time you don't, because if you show all the hidden files and folders, you show a lot of extra stuff that just gets confusing on the computer, especially for a user. You know, that they the less you show them, the less, you know, the better off you are. So that's why by default, there's a lot of files and folders that are hidden. But every once in a while, we need to get to those when we're troubleshooting the computer. So anyway, up here at the top, there's a blue button. So when you went through that and you did a submit, you would submit the assignment. And does everybody know how to use the snipping tool?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe. Okay, so I just typed snip, and down I've got this box that comes up. Now there's a snipping tool, and in the newer version of Windows, they've got another option called snip and sketch. So they've got a newer version of either one works. If I click on snip and sketch, you can see it opens up this box right here. And then if I click on new, it puts a little bar at the very top right here. So that's kind of nice. And you can do a rectangular shape. If you do over here, you can do the entire screen. So if I clicked on that, I've captured the whole screen. And that's kind of handy. With the snipping tool, you actually have to lasso the full screen. So this has an option now where you can just pick the full screen. So
Do
there.
you prefer us to use the snipping tool as opposed to just taking a picture with a print screen feature?
You can do either one. Yeah, it doesn't matter. If most of, unless you've been in computers quite a while, most people are probably not familiar with doing it that way. I think that's control copy, control print screen, control paste, or something like that. Is that right, Derek?
It's just print screen and then control
Windows
paste.
key print screen.
Okay, okay, yeah, you can do it that way as well. So you can use the snipping tool, you can use snip and
But once
sketch, or you can use
Don't you
the
have to
print.
put it on like a Word document, or it just can't pop up like this?
You could
Oh no,
say-
it's going to save as a JPEG, because it's actually going to save as a picture.
Yeah, and then I would control paste it on a Word document and then enlarge it.
Yeah, that's true. If you do the control, if you do that method, you're going to have to put it into a Word document.
Oh,
Yeah,
how do you
forgot
do the
about
other
that.
method? I've never even.
Okay,
Oh,
so if I do it this way, I
Oh, we
will
can
hit.
find it later.
Yeah, if I do it.
I've never
this-
seen snip and sketch.
Okay, that's a good question. How do you find it later? So I'm going to click on Save As,
Yeah.
and it's going to put it now in the pictures folder.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because
so,
I
yeah,
try
know.
it, but I cannot find it.
You know what I do then is give it a unique name, Nalia, and then
Yeah.
do a search for that name.
Oh, okay.
Give it something unique,
Yeah.
and then search for it, and then you'll figure out the default location. It should
Actually,
be,
I think I didn't save it. I didn't give name. Not what happened. I don't know.
well, you can see down here, it
That's
gives a
okay.
default name. The default name is screenshot. Then it puts the date. It does a date stamp. So it does
Okay.
screenshot, the name of the date, and then it gives a random number at the very end of it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that looks pretty ugly. So usually I'll change that to something that,
Yeah, because I tried to save it, but I cannot find file save. I cannot find it where I should do that.
you know,
That's
this is real funny on this. You know, traditionally, on a lot of, in the old days, they'd show a picture of a floppy disk because you'd save to a floppy disk. Well, floppy disks are obsolete. But in this new snip and sketch, they've chosen to use a floppy disk icon as the save. Now, it's funny because you know how some things are tradition, and you know, people getting into computers now may not know what a floppy disk is. So they may look at that little picture and say, what is that? And why does that mean save? Is everybody aware of what a floppy disk is, or is there somebody that didn't know what one is?
Yeah. And I remember them.
Do you remember them? Even how old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, so you're maybe somebody younger might not have seen floppy disks.
I
So anyway-
remember them barely.
Floppy disk. We do that.
Yeah. So Daniel, you barely remember them.
I'm holding one up
Yeah.
now.
Okay, he's holding one up right now. That is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we have tons of them here. Yeah, that is 3.5-inch floppy disk. Been around for a long time. And I think back in about 2006 was when they stopped making them. What you need, Carl?
Burn it?
No, I haven't burned it yet, but I
Okay.
will.
That's why I was down here.
I have it down right in front of me, but yeah, I will.
Okay. That would be down.
Yeah. All right. I always ask you for something. So yeah, the floppy disk was the way to store media, and what did it get replaced by?
CD.
You know, it's kind of hard to say. Yeah, a writable CD, a rewritable CD, a writable DVD, a rewritable DVD, or a flash drive. Now here I have a flash drive, and now these things are pretty inexpensive. You know, this one is an 8 gig. You can probably get it for what, under a couple dollars if you buy them in bulk. So yeah, I guess the problem with floppy drives was eventually they just were not big enough to store files. Floppy drive stored 1.4 meg. This flash drive stores 8 gig. So you got to figure this is roughly what, about 8,000 times the amount of information that a floppy disk would store. So things move on. Okay. But they use the floppy disk as the icon to save, which is kind of amusing. So anyway, let's go back to that. So yeah, you can use the snipping tool. You can use Snippet Sketch, or you can use the print screen option. So let's continue on. Windows Fundamental Section 1. Okay, so there are chapters in here, chapter 6 and 7. Before that, there's the, well, there's another hands-on project. Let's click on that and find out what that is. Okay, that's another thing that's referenced to the book. I linked a little video in here to reference that talks about system information as well. Also, that information will be in your book. So by using the system information, you'll be able to identify what operating system you're using, what version. Remember, if you're running Windows 10, there's a home version, there's a pro version, there's an enterprise version. There is a 32-bit and a 64-bit. Do we ever see the 32-bit version of Windows 10 anymore?
No.
Probably not. Yeah, probably not. Maybe in a low-end tablet or something like that. But for the most part, no. What was the limitation on the 32-bit operating system?
4 gigabytes of memory.
Yeah, it could only use 4 gig. And when we say only, at one time 4 gig sounded like a lot. Now, while most computers start with 4 gig and typically have 8 or 16, so what would happen if you have a computer that has 8 gig or 16 gig or more of RAM and you install a 32-bit operating system, what happens? What do you think happens, Nalia? Nala.
Sorry, the question again.
Okay, if I install a 32-bit version of Windows 10 into a computer that has 16 gig of RAM, is it able to use all of the RAM?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
16 gigabyte and
Right.
32.
Right.
No, I think we need 64.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. We need the 64-bit operating system. So we're essentially wasting our money if we have 8 or 16 gig or more of RAM in your computer and you only install the 32-bit operating system. And I've seen it happen sometimes. Sometimes somebody accidentally installs the 32-bit operating system, or they had the 32-bit operating system and they decide to put in more than 4 gig of RAM. What happens, they added more than 4 gig of RAM, but the computer was not able to use it because of the 32-bit operating system.
So it only uses the 4 gigabyte of memory that it can use? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Now, there are kind of some exceptions to that, we might say. If we were creating virtual machines within that, then we could assign some of the other RAM because we were using virtual machines, but for your typical, just your operating system, for the average user, you have, if you have a 32-bit operating system and you're going to add RAM to it, you're wasting your time when you're needing to add more than 4 gig of RAM. Now, the other problem is that if you have the 32-bit operating system, it's not directly upgradable to the 64. You have to wipe out the machine, format it, and start the install over again. So so that is also another issue as well. If you wanted to upgrade, you'd have to make sure you backed everything up and started fresh. Okay, so does everybody have a LinkedIn account set up? LinkedIn Learning.
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
don't.
If you don't, then message me and I will.
LinkedIn, yeah, I have it.
I do
You
not.
You do
I
not?
have LinkedIn on my own personal, but I don't have a LinkedIn Learning account.
Okay, just send me a message then, and especially by the time you get to this, make sure you send me a message on that if I haven't set one up for you already. And if I have already, I can let you know.
I have one before, yeah.
Okay. You have one, Nadia? You have
Yeah,
one?
like many years ago.
No, but did I set you one up or not?
Yeah, it is already. No, you don't. I have one.
Okay, but I can set you one up if.
Or
Okay.
you don't.
All right. I'm back. Okay. All right. So yeah. So let me know on that, or I'll take a look through, and if I haven't given you one, I will create one and email you. Okay. So we have some videos to refer to here. Let's see. A lot of fun stuff right here. This is a good one to know because I'm going to be actually doing this today. How to install Windows from a USB flash drive. Keep in mind that typically in the past, like you said, the CD and the DVD replaced the floppy drive, but nowadays a lot of our computers don't have CD or DVD drives on them, especially laptops. But even a lot of my desktop computer here does not have a DVD on it. Now we can always add one through our USB port, but a lot of times we have to think in terms of installing Windows using a flash drive. So I got a couple of videos there on that, on how to do that. Rich, you're smiling.
Now, what's she doing to you, man?
Mm-hmm.
Not
Oh, I
My
didn't know
girlfriend's
this.
trying to mess with me right now. So
Oh man, I didn't think our meeting was that exciting. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Look
all
what you
right.
doing. Get me in trouble.
Yeah, you're gonna get in trouble there. Just be sure not to share that screen, okay?
Look at you.
Get yourself in trouble there.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right. So this is where I want to get down to the fundamentals exercises.
Wait, by the end of, I think my evaluation is done by this week. Should I've already been made it to this?
No.
Okay.
No.
Ooh, 'cause I was like, y'all are some superheroes. Y'all on that in 2 weeks. Oh my goodness. All right, sorry. Continue.
Well, I put the to give you an idea of how far you should be.
Yeah, the flow sheet, right?
Well, I also put within Canvas, and I think I did it in the latest version of the flow sheet, the hours.
Okay.
So each major section is 35 hours. If
Uh-huh.
you're doing 20 hours a week,
Yeah.
so keep in mind that 35 hours, roughly 2 weeks. I know it because the way we did hours at school and the way we're doing distance learning is a little bit off from each other, but
What we should done in paper and the book on this time.
well, if your schedule is 20 hours,
Yeah.
then let me back up for a moment. Let me back up here.
It is sometimes somebody do more than another person, but what is normal? How much we should done?
Because
Okay.
so far I'm done chapter 5. I'm about to take my chapter 5
You
test.
are too fast, Richard. You are too
Mhm.
fast.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, so
Oh,
this
no.
is okay. So this is 70 hours right here. This section
Yes.
right here. So
Yeah.
if your evaluation should be, if I'm not mistaken, 40 hours, correct?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's go to here. So all of this is 40 hours. So getting halfway through it.
Mhm.
So let's see, where would we go? Through DOS training videos, DOS hand exercises. I would say I would like you to get through at least the first 3 chapters of the book. So from the
3
beginning
chapters.
here down to chapter 3.
Oh,
I'm gonna
okay.
tell y'all I don't know if it helps y'all, but it helped me. I talked to Brian about it yesterday. The audiobook, like I got it and the person reads for you and you just follow along. It's helped me like finish the chapters. Like I'm not saying you want to finish the chapters faster, but it just I don't know. Sometimes I can read. I'm not like retarded or nothing. Sorry for that word. I'm not incompetent. I can read, but I just like to hear it because it makes it go faster. So you should download the ebook and get audiobook and listen to it.
Okay, and you went through Vital Source, right?
Yeah, I went through Vital Source and it's
Right,
just perfect. Yeah.
Okay. So Vital Source is a company, you can get ebooks in other ways, but Vital Source is a company that does educational books that you can get them online. Unfortunately, you have to rent them, right? So you rent it for a period
Yeah,
of time.
I think you can rent or buy, but yeah, I rented it for 120 days. So next year, March 1st, I think.
And as Richie's saying, one of the features that it will read the text for you, correct?
Yeah. And you can pick the speed it reads. So you could, if you want to read it super fast, you have it read it 100 times fast. So.
Yeah.
But it is a nice tool that's easy to help reading if you want to get the reading done. Because I remember I think I read like 30 pages. It was able to read me like 30 pages in an hour or something crazy like that.
Okay.
Yeah, chapter 1 was 60. If you will read everything and we have to try some of them, it is take a time.
Yeah, it takes exactly. And then plus notes, But like when you get the ebook, it lets you edit. So like the exam core tips that you would need to write down, you could just copy and paste it and put it on like a Word document and you could just print it out, to be honest.
Yes.
Just print out all your notes and just take a picture of all your notes.
Yeah.
Copy and paste,
Yeah, it's interesting that you go for the ebook option. Most people want the physical book. You know, I've often pushed the ebook, but I didn't think about the ability to have it read to you through it.
But he print letter. He put in Word and he print and he read from paper, and I think it is help him to put a note.
It's way easier for notes because like notes are so. If I was gonna write it down out of the book, it would be just so time consuming, and it would like just to write all that information down for what I think is gonna be on the test or the exam core tips. Some of them are long, some of them are not, and just writing that, but just the feature to be able to copy and paste that somewhere so I can just print that list out. Read is just way easier.
Yes, Daniel, we can do that. Just give me a time tomorrow to answer your question, okay? You're still here? Sorry, just Daniel asked me a question. Thank you. All right, so yeah, that's good to know. You're the first person here to actually get it through Vital Source. Like I said, I've used Vital Source at the community college level a lot for online
it's very
books.
good. I like it.
Okay, and yeah, that reading feature I didn't think about, and yeah, if that's handy, then that's good.
Yeah, no, it's very, very useful. Very useful.
All righty, so let's take a look at, we're bouncing back and forth. Let's come back up here again. So I was going down to the point where it said, well, I talked about LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is a nice resource. And just like you were talking about changing the speed when you watch the LinkedIn Learning videos, they have the text below so you can read it, and you can also change the speed as well. So if you want it to go faster, or I think it'll go a little slower, as you watch the videos, you can alter the speed on it. Okay, we talked about there's some videos to watch. This is where we were getting to the fundamentals exercises. Unless you back in the classroom, this only applies to the obviously to the classroom. Now, hopefully sooner or later you will be able to come into the classroom for some hours if you want, whenever it's open to a few students at a time. I think when it does open, we'll probably open it up to 4 or 5 students in the room. We've got so much room in here, and we've already been setting things up and spacing things out, and taking computers away from half of the tables so people can't sit in them and they can sit at others. So so you'll be able to do that. Okay, and of course, now if you can't fit in that, well, then you don't have to come in, but it will be hopefully an option whenever.
No, it's better if I would like to come.
Okay, all right, yeah, well, hopefully it will be an option.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we were at purple, we're at red, we were hoping to get to orange, but it's hard as far as the pandemic, but it's hard to say with it being winter now, whether that will better or worse. Anyway, if I click on the little preview button right here, these are the exercises. I can download them and print them again. So if you have a printer, most of you, I think I had given you a printed copy originally, right? Okay, Richie, I did, yeah. But if I didn't, or you need another copy, you can preview it. Did I give you a copy of these?
Yeah,
Derek?
yeah, I have with this.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Derek, if you do not have them and you have access to a printer, that's why I put them here as a PDF.
Yeah, I think I have them.
Okay, so these I call classroom exercises. I guess I should probably rename them something else.
Did you update them or anything recently? Because I printed them out when I first started.
This one I haven't changed. I guess if I do make a change, I should let you guys know, right?
Is it operating system exercises or just?
No, these are the Windows 7 fundamentals exercises I'm looking at now. Okay, I should have given you the operating system, the Windows 7, and the Windows 10. If I give you one, I should have given you all 3 of them.
I've got Windows 7 operating system.
Okay, that's what we're looking at, yeah.
Operating system exercises.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Okay, yep, that's it. I got it.
Okay, so for this, you want to, I should have given you a copy of that little thin booklet, right?
You did.
Okay, this one, eventually I'm going to change the exercises because obviously I can't get this book anymore, and I only have about 5 or 6 of them still floating around here to give out.
Oh, so these are like gold, huh?
Yeah.
Got one
So,
for sale if anybody, no.
right. So yeah. So this is a little booklet right here that I've been handing out, and yeah, whenever I'm done with these books, I'm gonna have to rewrite the section to reference something else. Probably create some videos or something. All right. So yeah, you go through this. We install the operating system on a 20 gig partition. Obviously, if you're doing that in VirtualBox or VMware, you can just set your virtual hard drive, right, to 20 gig. We kind of know how to do that, most of us. Kind of, right? Sort of. We do it enough times where we will, yeah, we will get that down. So, okay, check the status of the firewall.
Sorry for interrupting. I have to go somewhere at 3.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, I will, I'll upload it, Richie, so you can watch it later, okay?
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I'll send you the email for the other videos and something
Okay.
else.
Okay. All right. Mhm. Okay, here is a good question. What is a paging file? This should actually say what is the size of the paging file. What is the total paging size? What is a paging file, anyone? Jonathan, you should know by now, right?
Yeah, the paging file is a virtual memory on the hard drive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, virtual. So what does that mean, virtual memory on the hard drive?
It's like for like RAM. I guess if you run out of RAM on your actual stuff, it will go to you'll start using the paging file.
Right. So we have a computer. We have 4 gig, 8 gig, 16 gig. We have a finite amount of memory. Now you open enough programs up and it could end up needing more memory than that. So virtual memory is your hard drive acting like it's computer memory, because memory is just an area to store the ones and zeros, your program files and your data files and so forth. So it's just stored into memory. But if your memory runs out of room, then your hard drive can act like memory. But what is the difference between actual RAM memory and virtual memory?
Speed, is it?
Speed, yes, because the RAM is electronic. There's no moving parts. It runs very fast. With a hard drive, now I got to change it a little bit, but you used to always say the hard drive is mechanical, right? But why is that not always true nowadays?
We have the solid state drives.
Right, because we have the solid state drives. But the solid state drives are still not as fast as RAM. Now, I think that's true. Of course, on the new drives, that new technology, the M.2 drives, the super fast ones, I honestly don't know how their speed compares with RAM. I tend to think that it's not going to be ever match RAM, but I don't know. Well, I'd have to look through the specs on that. That's kind of an interesting question. So, technology moves so fast these days that we got to be careful what we say, right? What was true yesterday may not be true tomorrow. So anyway, the paging is your virtual memory, so that you can set that. So just in case your programs are using more RAM than you have in your RAM, your memory within your computer. Okay, turn the firewall back on to allow media center extensions. What does a firewall do?
Blocks unwanted traffic from the internet.
Yes, it blocks something.
Barrier between the internet and your computer.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Now, the interesting thing here is what type of firewall is this?
It's an integrated into Windows firewall.
Yeah, and we would call that an application firewall. Now, traditionally, we think of a firewall as being the barrier between all your computers and the internet. So that typically would be a hardware-based firewall. So that would often be built into your router. If it was a big company or medium-sized company, it would be a separate device, and we call that a perimeter device. It would be on the perimeter of your network. So it would, do you guys want to take a break here? I noticed Mike wandering off a little bit. Let me know. We could take a break or we could continue on.
Yeah, we could take a break.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll give you a break till 3:05, okay?
3:05?
3:05. Okay.
See you, Richie.
And now that if you want to stay online, you can.
I can listen when I'm working, okay?
You can listen while you're working. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's pretty. Mike, I said I'll let everybody take a break for until 3:05, okay?
Okay.
But anybody have any questions, what, you know, I'm stopped here till 3:05. So if you have any individual questions, be sure to ask them now.
Mhm. I have some question for chapter 1. I don't know how we will do that.
You have a what question for chapter 1? Go ahead.
I have just to go through some of them. I cannot now ask for each one. Actually, this one give examples, and we have to answer that what he does should doing.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. We can do that later.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we can either do it later or set up a time, or
Yeah,
you know, maybe on Thursday, maybe I can start off with that,
good.
going through questions. I think a few people. So if you want to message me with whatever chapters questions you want me to go over on Thursday, I think we could start
Okay.
with that. So,
Okay.
especially since Nadia, you can only stay on so long.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will text you for this
Mhm.
thing. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I will
Oh,
back after 15 minutes. 10
okay.
minutes. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, come back after 10 minutes and we'll see that.
Okay.
Hey, Brian, so is this fundamentals exercise going to be same as what will be required on the exam?
It covered the same material. There won't really be any real surprises. Yeah. So
Okay.
you need to know all of that, and some or all of it will be covered on the test. You know, it'll just be, you know, if it says, let's say, create folders, the test will be like maybe create different folders, different locations, or something like that. But it'll be the same concept.
Okay, so when it's time to take the test, you want us to have the system ready, the Win 7 and the Win 10 to work on?
Well, it really doesn't matter because I give you the full day, so it doesn't matter. That's entirely up to you. Okay?
Can I get the Win 7 exercises completed in Win 10?
You can complete both of them and then ask for the tests. I'm not sure quite what your question was.
Just to refrain from installing Win 7 virtual, or did you want us to go ahead and do that to complete the exercises and the test?
Okay, you're going to have to set up a Windows 7 virtual if you don't have a Windows 7 physical. Okay. But you can use the same virtual for both the exercises and the test, if that answers your question.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. And Windows 10, you're probably better off doing it in a virtual, right? Because if I ask you to partition, you probably don't want to wipe out your original physical install on your computer or your laptop, assuming you have Windows 10. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to take a quick break if there's no more questions, and I'll be back in a few, okay? There's just more and more stuff that keeps snowballing on top of things.
They're trying to clean things up a bit.
You know, I'm not saying they're not, yeah, they definitely are, yeah, because there has been a bit of a mess.
Yeah, especially with that Cortana and search feature integrated together. They've separated the Cortana and the search feature, and they separated the two.
Yeah,
So
exactly, because some people haven't been that big a fan of the Cortana.
right,
So,
I have mine disabled on my computer, and I just have the search feature down here in my taskbar.
Yeah, I've always missed the search feature, like in Windows XP and Windows 7.
Yeah.
Where it was, you know, I knew how to search for files on my local machine, and now Windows 8 and Windows 10, the search does both your local machine and the internet. And I don't really want it to search the internet when I'm doing a local search, because I'll use Google for that. You know, when I do a search on my local machine, I want to look for my local files.
Right.
And it'll do things like search the applications locally. I mean, I don't care about that. I can find my applications. I can use Google for the internet. I want to search for local files. You know how like Nalia was talking about before, when we do a snippet, where does that file get saved on your machine? If you don't remember, then you do a search for it. And I don't want that search showing me the internet searches because that's not what I'm interested in. So yeah, that's my personal thing. You know, people may feel different about the search, but I don't really like the integration of all things into the way Microsoft does it with Cortana and the search and so forth. It just shows me a lot of stuff that I'm not looking for. So let's get back to that. So Mike, you're going to be able to do the Windows 7 stuff because you're about there, right? Derek, you're about there as well, right?
I'm about there. I got to take chapter 5 quiz, and I think I'm done with that whole DOS or the first part of that. If I'm not
okay, so you'll have the whole 70-hour section done.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll have that 70-hour section done. Mike, you've got that first 70-hour section. You're on the second 70-hour section. So yeah, so Mike, let's get at least, you're going to be able to get the Windows 7 section done this week, you think, now that Mike, we talked about it a bit?
Yes, it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
The only thing I said is I got to clean up my computer. I need to, I had a problem with my, I bricked my terabyte drive, my Samsung Evo. I forgot my password, so I have no way to transfer all my stuff off my MacBook, except on.
What did you do? Did you encrypt the drive?
Yeah, I did. I messed up.
That's, you know, I've had a couple of times where I put BitLocker on for students, and I say, make sure you. That's why I'm always reluctant, because I'm not always the best at passwords. You know, I had forgot the PIN on one of my iPads, and yeah, it's a pain in the butt to retrieve it on like an Apple device, or yeah, if you've got BitLocker and or some encryption, and you forget it, boy, that's.
Well, funny thing is, I had it written down somewhere. I just can't write it, and I've tried all my numerous different passwords and can't get in. So I have to use a USB drive, clean up my computer, and get that Windows 7 set up as a virtual. Like I said, I barely have any space for operating power. Not good at all.
Yeah. How big of a drive is that one you've got?
128 maybe.
Oh, that's tiny, huh? That's solid state? Yeah.
It's MacBook Air.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, well, okay, that figures. Yeah, that sucks not having your external drive. I didn't think about that. You can't even.
I got 6.8 gigs available out of 121.
Okay.
Can you set up a virtual drive with the files on a terabyte drive on an external drive?
Yeah, you can. It's a little slow, but you can.
Yeah, well, it's a little slow anyway. That's probably the preferred method to go. For me, it sounds like I've got a drive I could use for that. I suppose I'll just go for it. Do you have to format the entire drive in order to?
No. The whole point of a virtual is you don't have to do that.
Okay, good.
Because what happens is the way the virtual works, the file becomes your virtual hard drive.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, you don't have to mess with that.
Understand. Makes sense.
I had the same thing on my external SSD drive. I had all my virtuals on there, and I can't get into it right now. It's so upsetting. But it worked.
Why can't your Mac get into it? Did the Mac lose the encryption password, the key, or what happened? Did you reformat your Mac, or?
No. The Samsung has encryption.
Right, but I mean, how were you getting into it before? Was the password saved in your Mac, or what?
No.
You were typing the password in each time?
Yes.
And you forgot? How long ago was it the last time you typed it in?
Summertime.
Oh, well. Oh, man, that's annoying, yeah.
Happens sometimes.
It does happen. I'm not gonna put you down for that. It's happened to me. So
Happened to me.
yeah. You know what I need to get, and I keep saying, is one of those password keepers. What do they call the company that does? There's a couple.
BitLocker?
No, those ones where in your phone you can save all the passwords.
Password safe.
They keep saving my.
Yeah, I forget what they are. There's a
In
couple.
the book, I just saw it.
And
Password locker.
yeah, something like that. And I think they charge a couple bucks a month. I don't want to pay
You
a couple
get-
bucks a month for.
You get free ones. I got Password Safe. It's an open source. It's for freebie, and it's really, really good. It
Mhm.
works great.
Yeah, I keep saying I need to do that. But is it a local or a cloud-based one?
It's Password Safe is local
See,
online.
I probably want a cloud-based one, because if you lose your phone, then you're screwed on that. So
Well,
I think, as much as I hate to pay for that, I might end up paying the.
Back up your system to an external drive, and you'll have
Right.
retain it.
Right, but I think it might be worth it for me. I keep putting it off to actually pay for a cloud-based one, because there you always have it.
Yeah.
You know, because yeah, you can go to a local drive, which I agree with that. I agree that's better than nothing. But you know how it is. You lose one thing, you lose the next thing. You think you have the password written down somewhere. And,
For me, I wrote all of them right down on notes
mhm,
on my iPhone.
okay.
I have notes and my password, and put all of them. I have 2 emails. I sent from email to another email. But
Oh,
it's a
that's a good
problem
idea.
when
That's a good idea in a way. Although it's not the most secure method.
but it's a problem when you will update the
Right.
password or change it. You have to change
Right.
everywhere.
But that's not a bad idea. Send from one email to another. Although, as I said, it's not the most secure thing to do in the world. But if you're not ultra sensitive to security on that, that's not a bad idea. Mhm. I mean, theoretically, somebody could hack your email and then find your passwords, but the chances of somebody doing that are, fairly
That's a problem.
slim, fairly slim. But it's if you were a company, you probably wouldn't want to do that, as your method.
No.
But
Oh.
but if you're a person that loses passwords a lot, then that's not a bad idea, So we'll give that like a C+, okay, for method. I wouldn't want to say that teaching security, but as far as forgetting things, I'm sure it works.
So is there anything you're going to be going over today for us?
Let's see. What did I want to go over today? Let me bring up the. Actually, I don't have a Windows virtual machine, unfortunately, to show you right now. But let's bring up the. I'll just bring up my Windows 10. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of these things, even though it's on my Windows 10 machine, what we do in Windows 7. So we talked about virtual memory. So how do we get to virtual memory in 10? We go to the control panel. We go down to System, if I can find it. And then we go into the advanced settings. Okay, so under here, under the advanced tab, we have 3 different options right here: performance, user profiles, and startup and recovery. So which one lets you mess with the virtual memory?
Performance.
Performance. So if we look at the thing right here, visual effects, processor scheduling, memory usage, and virtual memory. So let's take a look at the settings in here. Okay, this first one right here is one of the exercises asked to do in Windows 7. to, and you can see you can still do it in Windows 10. Adjust the performance for adjust for best performance. Adjust for best performance. Why is that twice? That's weird.
One says just for appearance, and the
Oh,
other
just
one.
for, yeah, I don't have my glasses on. Sorry, you're right. Adjust for appearance and adjust for performance, and let Windows choose so forth. So when I ask you in the exercises, let's say to adjust for performance, this is where you're going to look. Now in Windows 7, it's basically in the same spot. Now also, I don't think you have this in Windows 7, but an actual custom one right here. You can see this is really granular. I mean, you can go in and check all kinds of stuff if you want the fade to be optimized or whatever. You know, I don't think most of us care that much to get this granular, but
Yeah, that's all appearance stuff.
right, it's all appearance. Which ones do you want to optimize and which ones you don't? Maybe if you did like some presentations or something like that, and there was a couple of little ones of these that you wanted to emphasize, possibly you could do this. I can't see a lot of people actually going through and messing with that. I'm going to adjust for performance, right? So we got that out of the way. So that's that tab up there, just as visual effects. Let's click on advanced. Okay, adjust for, again, adjust for programs or background services. Why you might want to choose one or the other.
Programs may be more demanding than background services.
Right. A background one might be, let's say you're into video editing and maybe you're rendering something and that's running in the background while you're working on other stuff. And you want that rendering to be done as fast as possible. So some kind of thing that might be running a long time in the background, something's maybe crunching numbers or something like that.
What about a backup or an update? Would that be considered a background service?
Yes, it definitely would. So a backup, so that you want to give the best performance to that. So whichever one you want to give priority. So maybe that backup or that rendering or whatever you're doing in the background is more important, and you're just playing with the computer while you're waiting for that to be done, that you want to set the background surface, give it priority. Okay, and this is the one we talked about before, virtual memory. You can see this page is a little bit different than the screenshot I showed earlier for Windows 7, but it's effectively the same thing. A paging file, so we asked about paging. The virtual memory actually has to have a file, right? So when we're giving it, 2 gig of virtual memory, it's going to create a file called the page file.sys that's 2 gig in size to make room on your hard drive for that virtual memory. I think we talked about a little bit in the old days. What was it called, Derek, before it was called the paging file in Windows 95? See if he remembers.
I don't recall.
You don't recall? Jonathan, you don't recall? Okay, it was called the swap file.
Yeah, that's it.
And there was a permanent and temporary swap file in Windows 95. And I think you may use that term in Linux as well. I'm not sure.
I think
Swap
so.
file. Or a partition sometimes in Linux, not just a file.
A swap partition, yeah.
Swap partition, yeah. They not in Linux. They not only just create a file, you actually create an entire partition, a small partition for your virtual memory.
Correct. Yeah.
I was just reading about that right before we hopped on class.
So you see the same kind of concept in Linux, just done slightly different. So using a partition, which I think is not a bad idea, because I was worried about when you have a paging file, is if you fill your hard drive up, you don't leave room for the paging file. That's why sometimes you see that performance go down. Also on solid state drives, you see that your performance goes down when you filled about 60–70% of your hard drive. So solid state drives, to get that really fast performance on them, you don't want to completely fill them up. Ideally, you only want to go maybe 60–70% of the drive full. Otherwise, they tend to lose their performance. So if we click on here to change, you can see right now the default is that the operating system itself will manage it. But if I unclick that, now I've only got a C drive, so I can go in here and kind of custom size, and I can use anything up to the basically the maximum amount of memory I have on the hard drive. Now, sometimes we used to like to do, and it's still a consideration, if we had multiple hard drives. The C drive here has my operating system on, right? So my the computer is accessing the hard drive a lot for operating system functions. So if I had a second hard drive, I might want to consider putting the page file on that for performance issues, so that one drive is only being thrashed for the operating system, the other one for the page file. So you're splitting the job between two different drives. Now you'd want them to be physical drives. If they were just partitions, then you wouldn't really gain anything by doing that. The only thing you would gain is if you left the partition alone with the page file on it. At least you wouldn't be eating that space up for anything else. So if we click, also there's an interesting one here, no page file. Why might you want to do that?
To not use resources, not use extra resources?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, think about this. If you got tons and tons of RAM and you want to make sure that it never does any paging, you're going to get the best performance. Now, of course, you're going to risk the machine crashing if you do run out of RAM. But if you're sure you've got tons of RAM, I would love to do that. You know, run no paging file, right? And you know, for the best performance. Now, you may risk stability on your system if you do that. I'd like to look online and see how many people have done that and how much RAM they use before when they consider using no page file. But remember, whenever you're using the page file, we call it paging, you're slowing down things a little bit, because as we said, the hard drive is not going to be as fast as your RAM on your motherboard. So whenever it uses the page file, it's going to be a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
We can click on here, set. Well, I didn't put a number in here, but I could go in here and let's say 1024. Let's say 1024. Another thing I kind of toy about on this as well, you can see you can make them both different sizes. Now, one of the considerations here, if they're different sizes, then it's going to grow as you need more. You know, and I get into a bit of debate about that. Is that good or is that bad? Because if I just set them the maximum on both, then it's going to be allocated. It's never going to grow or shrink. It's going to be allocated to that size. And I kind of like that. And I don't know what the current belief is, which is the best way to go. I know a lot of people will say make them the same size, and it's not going to dynamically grow. Now, we do this dynamic growth thing also on things like virtual hard drives, where we'll set a size, 20 gig or something on a virtual hard drive, but we'll set it to dynamic, which means it'll only use what it needs all the way up to 20 gig. So this whole idea of growing file sizes growing is kind of a common theme. It's used for a number of places. I'll go back to the automatic on that. Okay, and I talked a little bit about this before, DEP. Does anybody remember why they added this DEP feature? Jonathan?
Well, I feel like I'm cheating. I can kind of read the thing. It says it's there to protect against damage from viruses and other security threats.
Right. Yeah, there was a vulnerability in Windows called buffer underruns. And this was a notorious one where hackers would exploit that. So what happened, Intel and AMD, when they went to their 64-bit features, added this feature to support DEP. I think Intel called it NX or something like that, and AMD called it something else, but it was a feature within their, so basically Microsoft and Intel, Microsoft and AMD kind of had to work together on this to implement this feature. So you only get this feature, I think it might have came out with XP, but it had to be a 64-bit operating system, and you have to have a 64-bit CPU to get this support. So basically, it's a hardware way of preventing a vulnerability in Windows that viruses would take advantage of. Okay? So yeah, it's the data execution prevention. And like I said, within your CPU, if you go into the BIOS, it will be referred to as something different. Like I think it's NX non-execution or something like that within an Intel CPU, and something else.
So if this is not enabled, someone can remotely execute one of these files to harm your system. Is that what the protection's against?
It was a typical type of vulnerability. As I recall, I think it was where it would end up using all the resources and bog down, mess up your computer. So it was more, as I recall, more of a one to cause issues with the computer. Nowadays, hackers are more likely to go after your computer to pull private information off of it, like your passwords and things like that. So that becomes a big issue. So as I recall, that wasn't really what this was designed for.
This
but
one
this
is more of a denial of service.
Kind of like that on your machine. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably these buffer underruns were probably used for a number of different types of. I mean, that's the general category of what it was trying to solve, and to protect against that vulnerability within Windows. And there were probably lots of different viruses and worms that would then go and exploit that for different reasons. But yeah, I remember getting the denial of service ones where what would happen is your computer and the computers within the company would get infected, and then they would try to infect each other, and then they would also send out packets on the network and send out packets to servers out on the internet, and create so much traffic that essentially all of your computers would be denied them, because they would just be unknowingly flooding your network with just junk traffic, and that would happen. That was what worms would typically do on your network, and we used to get hit with them back. In fact, we talked a little bit about firewalls before. One of the problems with, when Windows 2000 came out, Windows 2000 was the operating system we're finally waiting for, right? It's finally no longer using the DOS Windows 95 type of command kernel. It's using the NT operating system. And it was great until we found out that it was so easy to attack with worms. So when XP came about, when XP Service Pack 2, SPXP2 came about, all of a sudden security became a big, big feature. Bill Gates made a big deal about it then, because early versions of XP and Windows 2000 had been hit with so many worms that it was just costing companies a lot of money. So one of the two big things that they did in XP Service Pack 2, one was automatically turn on Windows updates. What I would find is when we were running Windows 2000, I would go in and update them, and I would never get to every computer, or the students never get to every computer in the school. And we would find the computers that didn't have the newest updates were the ones that would get infected by the worms. So the worms would go out and infect your machines that weren't on the latest updates. So what Microsoft decided to do was, with Windows Service, XP Service Pack 2, is automatically enable the Windows updates. So from now on, you know, a lot of people complain about it in Windows 10 that the Windows updates are on. But keep in mind, back in the old days when the updates were not turned on, we used to get hit with a lot of viruses and worms. And it was always the machines that were not updated. So, you know, I remember getting hit with a worm, and maybe about a third of our computers went down because about a third of them were not up to date. If had we not been updating machines, you know, all the machines would have been infected. But what did we have to do when we had those worms? We had to go around, had to send students around to all the computers and unplug the network cable in the back. So every one of them would have to be unplugged. Everyone would have to be scanned, and then gradually, one by one, reconnected to the network after they were updated and so forth. So it got a little laborious, and it cost the companies a lot of money. So the other feature they added with Windows Service Pack 2 was the Windows firewall. We talked a little bit about that. We talked about a personal firewall or an application firewall, which is what Windows has, and a perimeter firewall, which is what your router has. You have your network connection to the internet. So the router firewall is important for stop people from getting into your network, but the personal firewalls are important because if something gets in, like a worm, and starts attacking, now it's inside your network. So the perimeter firewall doesn't do you any good anymore. It's past that now. So you need a second level of protection. When we talk about security, we'll always talk about it in layers. You don't want to just put all your security in one location. You know, you can put all the security in the world, of course, and there's always something. There's always some way, you know, something to get around, and usually it's the last one, of course, it's the employee, you know, the employee bringing in something and picking up a flash drive on the street, right? The old joke, plugs it in and allows remote access from the outside world or something like that. But anyway, the personal firewalls are another layer of protection. So if you got a worm or something in your network, the firewalls are going to stop the other machines from being infected. So like I said, back in the Windows 2000 early XP days, we didn't have personal firewalls. With 2000, you didn't have personal firewalls. With XP, I think you just didn't have them automatically turned on. And what would happen is in the machines, once you get that virus or whatever past your perimeter firewall, then you had no protection anymore. So that was always a big issue. System protection on here, we talked a little bit about this. Now, one of the pains about this, since this is your system restore, is if you get a virus, what do you need to do?
Enable restore points.
You actually need to disable. Yeah, you need to disable it. So that's always a confusing thing. People get confused on.
Apparently, as he says it before, he said like some viruses actually go into your restore points and corrupt those so that if you go back, you might still have the virus.
Yeah, so it's kind of annoying. A better way to make yourself safer is to do something like nightly backups. Then you would go back to a backup to where you're sure you weren't infected. But unfortunately, with system restore, the virus could get into the restore point. So yeah, if you get a virus, you'll see it on all the A+ questions and so forth, is to turn off your system restore and then scan your machine to get rid of the viruses. And so I find that kind of annoying. It sort of limits the point of your system restore. What I find system restore useful for is, let's say I'm trying out a little software of some type, and maybe it's a little sketchy or something like that. You know, you're not, but you need it. You know, you're going to try it, but you're not sure how safe it is or how well it's written. And you take a look at it, now you want to get rid of it. Well, you do the uninstall, right? You do the uninstall of Windows to remove the software. Well, after that, you can go use your system restore to take your computer back to a time before you install that software. Because what can happen even if you uninstall a program?
These residual files behind.
Residual files, but more important than that, residual what?
System files.
Besides system files, what else?
The malware.
Well, it can leave residual entries in your registry. And those, and those are going to be a pain to clean up.
Definitely.
So by using the system restore, it's an easy way to get rid of any other registry entries that might have been left behind. Because what happens with your computer over time, that registry seems to bloat bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger it is, the more you're going to slow your computer down. Because every time your computer does something, it has to look into the registry for configuration information. And if your registry is growing bigger and bigger, well, it's more to look through. So that's often why you'll hear people every year or 2 or 3 or whatever, if they do a lot of stuff with their computer, install a lot of programs and so forth, might just format their computer and start over again. Because that's one way you'll get much more snappy performance back in your computer again, because you'll get rid of all that bloat within the registry. But if we don't want to do that, we don't always do that. One way to try and stop it is if you remove a program, use a restore point to go back. Now, there are also some third-party uninstallers that try to keep track of everything that's put in the registry and make a log of that, so that if you use that uninstaller, hopefully, in theory, it might remove everything and get you back to the beginning again.
So, Brian, does Linux have its own type of registry as well, similar to Microsoft?
Well, it does have a lot of config files. I think it's a good question. There's lots of config files within Linux to do that. As far as whether they call it a registry, top of my head, I'm not quite sure.
I don't think so, because Linux uses, each program is its own package, basically. And
yeah, but that's a different part. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it has its own installer. Yeah,
it use system files. It uses its own files from its own folder, its own package.
Well, they have their own packages, but Windows does too. They have the MSI files, so you essentially can have packages within Windows too. Or you use a setup.exe, which is essentially like a package within Linux.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. That's a good question. Somebody want to Google that?
Yeah, does Linux use registries?
Yeah. Okay, Linux equivalent of registry. What is equivalent of registry if there's no, I saw somebody's asked the question before, if there's no equivalent similar structure. Things done. Linux applications typically store in, so config and text editor file specific to the application. So it uses config files within the etc folder. Okay. So yeah, that's why I wasn't.
Read it.
So it's using config files. And that etc folder is where a lot of that information is stored. Even Windows has an etc folder, and that's where we have things like I don't know if we talk about our host files in there. Host file is what we use instead of DNS. Okay, well, I'm not signed in there. Okay, so I think that kind of answers it, Mike. Yeah. Yeah, it's you got to translate. There are some things that don't translate directly within. Which seems strange in Linux because the nice thing about the registry is very hierarchical. There's a beginning and then there's different what we call registry keys within it, and it's all kind of sorted. Even though it's kind of a pain to go in, but at least there's different. They call them keys and subtrees within like directories and folders. Okay, and then the remote on here, we have a couple different versions of remote. We have remote desktop and remote assistance. Usually, most of the time, we're going to be using, within a corporate environment, the remote desktop. And this is where you can set permissions on this. So you see where if I allowed somebody, and if I select users right here and add, and then I'm going to click on advanced, find now, and down here at the bottom, you can see there's a whole list of different users that I can add or different groups and give them permission to remotely access the machine. So if I want my account to be able to remotely access different computers, I can go to their computers when I set them up and give myself the ability to remote access into them. Now, this depends on how we set up the network, whether we set the network up as a work group or a domain. When we get into a domain, if I click on the users here, I will be actually pulling the information off of my server. So all of those accounts can be set for all of the computers on the network because they're logged into the same network. We call it an Active Directory domain. When we're in a work group, I can only add users in here that are local on this computer. So if I want to allow remote access and I'm in a work group, I have to go around to every computer in the work group and create that same account on that machine and then grant that account permission to allow remote access. So that's fine for a small number of computers, but once we get to a large number of computers, by having that domain set up, that Active Directory domain set up, the accounts exist in kind of like we'd say a cloud. So they're there for every computer on the network. So if I go into another computer and log into it, that connects to the domain and allows me to log in with that account without creating it on the local computer. So if I had hundreds of users on my network, by having a domain, I create all those users on the domain. If I had hundreds of users in the work group and I wanted to be able to access any computer with any group, with any account, I'd have to go to every computer and create that 100 users over and over and over again. So generally, what you often hear the rule of thumb is if you have more than 10 computers in a network, you want to go to that level of setting up as a domain, having a server. Now, I know they say 10, 10 is just an arbitrary number. It could be, I've seen computer networks where they have a server and a domain with just 3 or 4 computers on the network. So it all depends. And especially if you have some kind of software, some kind of server software, like an email server or database server, and you want everybody to be able to log on securely. Then all of a sudden you want to set it up with a domain. So the remote users here, the remote assistance, we don't really see that used anymore because usually people are going to third-party solutions instead, like go to my PC, TeamViewer, log me in, join me. There's several different companies that do that. What was that?
Zoom is a remote assistance software.
Yeah, I guess you could add Zoom to that now. Yeah, yeah, even Zoom. The traditional ones, you know, now the other ones are getting into that that field as well.
This is
So, yeah,
network based, right? So it doesn't really require opening up ports.
right. It doesn't require opening up ports, which is an interesting thing. Why would you be able to use this and not open up ports? Because usually when a company says we need to get in, they'll email me and say, they'll say, you need to open up port blah, blah, blah for IP address, blah, 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 so we can get in, right? Why does using something like TeamViewer allow me to get around that? Doesn't that sound like a security violation?
Those ports are already open.
No, they're not already open. They better not be.
Would they be through a VPN now?
The network ports are already open.
Well, that's close. Your answer, Mike. That's getting closer.
What was your answer, Mike?
He said a VPN.
Ah,
Okay, that's not entirely the answer, but that's close to what we're looking for. The reason we don't need to worry about opening up ports when we're using TeamViewer or logging in or go to my PC or any of those is because we're establishing the connection from inside the network. So if I'm using TeamViewer, I'm logging into it and I'm connecting to a TeamViewer server. And then the person on the other end that wants to remote into me is also logging into a TeamViewer server. Now I had to give them just like Zoom, I had to give them the account number and the password. So I had to allow all of that. And the fact that we're going through a third-party server is since we're setting all that up, we're essentially opening that. We've set up an established connection. So we've essentially bypassed the rules of the firewall then. The fact that I'm in the network and allowing that connection is the reason we don't have to worry about a firewall, what's open or closed on the firewall. Because most firewalls will allow you to connect from the inside out and not from the outside in. So yeah, so by using one of those third-party ones going through their server, I don't have to worry about the firewall. Where if I use remote desktop, I do have to open up. Does anybody remember the port number? We haven't talked about ports in a while.
3368.
Close. 3389, yeah. 33.
Yeah.
You're close. Okay. So port 3389, we'd have to open up to allow the remote desktop. We call that RDP, the remote desktop protocol. Port 3389, we'd have to open up to allow that. Okay, let's go back to the first tab on here. This is where I've talked about the work group and the domain. Now, at the moment, I should have this set up as a domain, but I don't. At the moment, I have this computer set up as a work group. If I click the change button right here, you can see I have the option to make it a work group or a domain. You can see member of a domain. Now, I cannot create from this Windows 10 machine, I cannot create the domain. The domain already has to exist. You know, I have to have installed a server on my network, which we call a domain controller. And when I set up that domain controller, I would give that domain a name. In the case of the school here, our domain name is vase.com. Now Microsoft wants you to use an internet style naming convention for your domain. So you notice it is, I said vase.com. So I want to do that two-level name, just like we do on the internet. In the internet, we have that top-level domain. We have the .com, the .edu, .net, and so forth. And then we have the SLD, the second-level domain name, which is whatever name you register with the .com or the .net or so forth. So we want to use that same on our servers within our network. Because the reason they want us to do that, so if we ever registered that name, we could register that into the internet by using the vase.com or something like that. Now, the funny thing is you may have vase.com but not actually own it, as long as you don't register that into the internet, connect it into the internet. If you don't actually own it, then you're okay. To avoid that confusion, you can actually do a lot of people will make the extension .local, so you'll see that as well. So it could be vase.local. so that we know we're never going to register that on the internet by adding the .local in. Okay, so those are all the things within the system properties. Let's go back to the device manager for fun, because we can never look at this enough, right? I've been looking at it at home because one of the things I did is the latest update to Windows 10, I think, is the 2002. The last one before that was 1909.
It's 2004, isn't it?
Is it 2004?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if I'm on that here. Let me take a look, see what version this is on. Okay, so if we go to settings, we go to system, and then we go to about. Okay, this is down here. This is still on 1909. Okay, so my home machine, it updated itself, and I think it went to 2002 or 2004. 2004, I think you're right.
2004 was
Okay,
my
2004. When
Yeah.
I did that on my machine at home, a couple of my devices within my device manager would not register anymore. And I noticed my Wi-Fi wasn't working, so what did I do? I went into the device manager right here. And what did I see under my network adapter? I saw a little yellow triangle with an exclamation point.
Yeah, triangle.
So, yeah, so when you see that, you know you have a problem. So I went through all the normal stuff. I deleted it, I disabled, re-enabled, and so forth to try and get that triangle away. And unfortunately, I just got one of those ones where it would not go away.
It's like
I went through every step.
you couldn't upgrade the drivers or anything, huh?
Yeah, I went through all of it. I put new drivers in, everything. So what is the last resort you have to go
You
to?
have to replace the network adapter.
No, I did that too. I did that. Even that didn't work.
Really?
Hmm.
No, so you reverted back to the old.
I
driver.
did that too. I did that too. I did a system restore. I reverted back. Nothing worked. I went through every one of those steps. I went even the registry and changed registry entries. Nothing worked. So what do? You have a customer, you have that problem. What do you do? What's the last resort?
Reimage?
Reimage, yeah, reinstall. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, tonight I'm going to reinstall the operating system.
Is that what you did, or
I didn't have time. I ran out of time today. That's why I didn't connect this morning. So I ordered myself another hard drive. I'm going to put it. The one thing I'm going to do is, since I'm going to redo it tonight,
I would try.
I got myself an SSD, so at least I'm upgrading my drive. I'm going to go to all the effort of doing that.
I would try reverting back to the drivers that you know worked last time, and then restart the entire computer.
I did that. Believe me, I did that too. Yeah, I know. This was just one of those ones where it finally. Well, it's not going to beat me entirely, and I'm going to reinstall it, but nevertheless, it's one of those few where I had to go to the last resort.
Wow.
Yeah, and just
That's Windows for you.
Yeah, so the latest update on me just caused it to fail to there's an error message. I forget the code number is, but it's failing to load the driver. And yes, I went through all the help things, and I think there was 8 different methods I went through, and not including putting in a brand new Wi-Fi device. And
Really?
so anyway, sometimes Windows can just be that way. And so at that point, what do you need to do? You need to make sure everything's backed up. So what I decided to do, I bought another hard drive. I'm going to install it on that. Then I'll connect the other hard drive and copy all my data over to it.
Well, you said you're trying to put Windows on a USB flash drive, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm going to do that. I'm going to put Windows on a USB flash drive and then install it on my computer tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do we do that? That's a good question. So let me bring up the page on that. So we go to this page right here where it says download Windows. So you want to Google the Windows 10 Media Creation Tool. And I actually have it down here in the bottom right here. I've already downloaded it on here, show in folder. So you can see right here the media creation tool, and this is the latest version, 20H2. That gives you the latest version of Windows. So you run this Windows creation tool. In fact, let's run it. I don't know if I'm going to lose the screen on you. So we go through this, and it will give you the option to, instead of doing it on your computer, to do it to a flash drive.
Cool.
I've got a flash drive stuck in already, so let's hopefully this doesn't take too long. Maybe I'll give up on it in a minute. Anyway, so I'm going to create a flash drive here using the media creation tool. And so I'll have the Windows, and of course I will need a serial number. Windows, Microsoft lets you download all of this to install, but you still need your license. So Microsoft Media Creation Tool. So blah, 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 blah. We'll click accept here.
This is if you're doing something extreme like replacing the hard drive or something to that effect. Where
Yeah, because you've got nothing on the hard drive now, so you'll need you need to create a flash drive now, or a DVD, or whatever you want.
Right.
So if you don't have let's say a retail copy of Windows on a flash drive or a DVD, you just go to the internet here and download the media creation tool, run that, and then it will let you create a bootable flash drive to install Windows from. Then what do you have to do in the BIOS? Okay, so here it says create installation media USB flash drive.
You have to switch the BIOS to be bootable.
To bootable to USB.
Flash drive. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So here I'm not gonna upgrade the PC, so I'm gonna choose the second option. Create installation media. So USB flash drive, DVD, or an ISO. So I have the. Hopefully it will give me a choice in a moment.
Cool.
Okay. So language 64-bit, Windows 10. Next. Flash drive, you can see I do it flash drive or as an ISO. So this is how you get your ISOs.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're going to do it in a flash drive because at least 8 gigs. So I'm using an 8 gig, so I don't want to waste a bigger flash drive for that. There it is right there, recognizes it. So let's click on next. And yeah, this will just be the boring part, right? It will be downloading it.
The best part.
The best part. Some of us like to do that, yeah, when we're trying to get to sleep, watching that little counter go up and the progress moving.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I've done enough talking at the moment. So if you guys have any questions, let's bring them up now. By the way, we'll on Thursday we'll do it at 2 o'clock because I have a Zoom thing in the morning getting in the way. So and next week we'll probably go back to 10 o'clock in the morning. Your internet connection was unstable, isn't it? Isn't that good?
Whose internet connection?
It just said mine for some reason.
I just glitched. You
Yeah,
glitched.
Maybe,
It's 4 o'clock. That's why.
yeah, our district is the guys at the district are on a coffee break right now, probably.
Everybody's logging on.
Yeah, everybody's logging on to watch the results tonight, right? Okay. Mhm. Yeah, I find that entertaining watching going home about 6 or 7 o'clock and just watching the results. And
You're not gonna find out anything until tomorrow anyway, or 2 weeks from now at this point.
yeah, I don't mind that. I just like watching the vote counts go up, and I don't know. It's like this, just watching the numbers go up.
Stay up.
I don't know. I'm amusing.
Watch everybody go. Yeah.
Okay, so how are we doing? Jonathan, you have any questions? You've been quiet. Oh, I locked it up, damn it. Zoom just locked up on me. Zoom just locked up on me. You saw that?
Yeah.
Did you guys? Did I lock up? You guys all locked up.
Yeah, just booted you out of your
Well, you know what? When you did that
share
cheer,
screen.
you know when you did that cheer, I guess it was just too much for Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
when,
you can't
yeah,
show-
when we were right in the middle of it, it locked Zoom up. Mhm. So anyway,
Reddit-
I think I'm done for today, but I'm open for questions unless
Okay, yeah, I got one question. Red or
Okay.
blue? Who's gonna win?
no.
That's
What's red and blue combined? Purple?
what's what?
We don't want
Green,
purple.
right?
Yeah, green.
Purple. Yeah.
Mhm.
No.